the Zodiac killer has 5 canonical victims. In other words, officials generally agree that he murdered at least 5 people: Betty Lou Jensen, David Arthur Faraday, Darlene Ferrin, Cecilia Shepard, and Paul Stein. But officials generally disagree about whether he murdered a forever 18-year-old girl named Cheri Jo Bates. Her body was found Halloween morning 1966, a little over 2 years before the first canonical Zodiac murders. And for 58 years, the city of Riverside, California has puzzled over the question, who killed Cheri Jo Bates? The so-called desktop poem was found at the Riverside Community College library, and Cheri Jo Bates was murdered on the property about 2 months beforehand. The handwritten poem was examined by Sherwood Morrill, California's top question document examiner at the time. Time and time again, investigators brought him samples from new suspects, and he told them no match every single time. But when they brought him the desktop poem and the set of 3 so-called Bates letters, 4 times he said, "It's a match." I've read he used the phrase, "without a doubt." The murderer of Cheri Jo Bates mailed out 2 versions of what's called the confession letter. It contains information only her killer and the police knew at the time. He also mailed out the Bates letters to 3 different addresses, all with the same postmark date. It's a set of 3 letters. 2 begin with the name Bates. 1 begins with the word she. Uncannily, the Zodiac mailed out a set of 3 letters to 3 different addresses, all with the same postmark date. 2 begin with "Dear Editor, I am the killer." 1 begins with "Dear Editor, this is the murderer." In both sets of 3, an introductory pattern is established in 2 letters and broken in the other. Of the 5 Riverside letters concerning the murder of Cheri Jo Bates, 2 of them were sent to the local newspaper. Of course, the Zodiac mailed out something like 20 letters to Bay Area newspapers, and several of them contained information only he and the police knew at the time. As the Zodiac Cipher's website explains, both versions of the confession letter and the Zodiac killer's little list letter spell the root word twitch without the second T in a sentence with the root word squirm. If the root words twitch and squirm independently appear in every 5,000 sentences and 5% of people spell twitch without the T, then only 1 in every 500 million written sentences will contain both squirm and TWICH. The Zodiac mailed out 4 substitution ciphers to the press. In other words, he was a cryptographer. And as the Zodiac Cipher's website explains, the desktop poem's proper title seems to be inspired by an excerpt from a known cryptographer named Edward Hyde. The excerpt is, "Weary of life, and yet are most unwilling to die," which abridges to "weary of life, unwilling to die," and becomes strikingly similar to "sick of living, unwilling to die." And as Tapatalk user ITC8K6 has pointed out, this excerpt from the song Old Man River also has striking similarities to the poem's title. Uncannily, it shares the word weary and 2 sets of synonymous phrases with the Edward Hyde excerpt. Both excerpts predate the discovery of the desktop poem, and they seemingly combine into its title. Unwilling to die comes straight out of the Edward Hyde excerpt, while sick of living comes out of sick of tryin' and tired of livin' from Old Man River. The title's big slash punctuates its duality. What's left of the slash comes from Old Man River. What's right of the slash comes from the Edward Hyde excerpt. Edward Hyde is also the full name of Mr. Hyde, the murderous alter ego of Dr. Jekyll. In the book, Dr. Jekyll writes a confession letter that reveals the truth about Mr. Edward Hyde. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is a book about the duality of human nature, and seemingly, so is the strange case of the Zodiac killer, the alter ego. The Zodiac killer's 13-character My Name Is cipher has ties to what's commonly called the A1Z26 code. It is a simple concept. Every letter is assigned a number based on its position in the alphabet. A1, B2, C3, all the way to Z26. A is the first letter of the alphabet. E is the second vowel in alphabetical order. N is the 14th letter of the alphabet, while 14 is the sum of 3 and 11. The The second digit in 12 minus the first equals 1, and the first letter of the alphabet is A. M is the 13th letter of the alphabet. The 8 balls work as commentary on how 8 of the cipher's symbols are letters. In other words, they connect letters and numbers. And with the K and M symbols between them, they juxtapose letters and numbers quite literally. These 5 symbols are bookended by the only non-letter, non-number symbols, and 4 features what resembles a plus sign, so it may be a suggestion to do arithmetic. Adding the 8s together makes 24. So does adding the values of K and M. And by mathematically unionizing the 5 symbols between them, symbols 4 and 10 ironically contribute to the cipher's letter-number connection. Cheri Jo Bates was murdered on 10/30/66. 66 minus 30 minus 10 equals 26. And 26 has a value of Z as in Zodiac. Both versions of the confession letter were postmarked on 11/29/66. 66 minus 29 minus 11 equals 26. All 3 Bates letters were postmarked on 4/30 the following year. And 30 minus 4 equals 26. To public knowledge. No other dates in the Cheri Jo Bates murder investigation have any direct relevance to the killer. 3 dates, 3 coded values of Z as in Zodiac. The desktop poem's title line has 26 letters, like the alphabet. It is initialed RH. R is the 18th letter of the alphabet, H is the 8th, and 18 plus 8 equals 26. In effect, the body of the poem is sandwiched by values of Z. CC Chief of Police Enterprise appears where the confession letter's signature would otherwise be. Including its punctuation but not the spaces, it is a total of 26 characters. And so, CC Chief of Police Enterprise works as a coded Z initial, just like RH from the desktop poem. Moreover, the title The Confession is 13 letters, and being a set of 2 documents, the confession doubles into 26 letters, equal to the total in the alphabet. In effect, the body of the letter is sandwiched by values of Z. Fittingly, 2 of the 3 Bates letters have strange Z-like initials. But if you take away its top appendage, one of the Z-like initials becomes an actual Z initial. Some people claim that these things look less like a letter Z and more like the number 32 mashed together. However, their argument has a glaring problem. A cursive Z also resembles the number 32 mashed together. Think duality. The 2 initials are a lettering hybrid, a cursive Z and print Z blended together. The 2-in-1 design works as a metaphor for how R and H from the desktop poem combine to represent Z, and is a literal big clue to the importance of cursive lettering. "Look at me," screams a lowercase cursive M in the letter to Joseph Bates. The only totally cursive character in all 3 letters, it's strikingly out of place and relatively enormous, especially for being lowercase. And there's more. The letter to Joseph Bates doesn't have a cursive print Z, it has a hiding print Z. As the final character in the message, the E in more has at least 6 lines when it should have only 3. 3 of those lines make a perfect Z, and so the Z hides in more's E. It's a marriage of 2 code-breaking principles. E is the most common letter, while Z is the least common letter. And there's she. The letter to Joseph Bates begins with she instead of Bates. The edit makes a character count of 26, or Z as in Zodiac. Again, the Riverside documents concerning the murder of Cheri Jo Bates come in 1, 2, and 3. 1 desktop poem, 2 the confession letters, and 3 Bates letters. All of them have a secret Z initial. By my count, the Zodiac mailed out a total of 26 letters and cards, including those to Riverside addresses. It's a pun about the A1Z26 code. 26 letters in the mail equal 26 letters in the alphabet. The Zodiac's final letter is signed the Red Phantom, red with rage. Including the punctuation, but not the spaces, it is a total of 26 characters, just like CC Chief of Police Enterprise from the confession, which is the first letter the Zodiac mailed out. This final secret Z initial is when the serial killer comes full circle.